Hi.
Hey Carmen, how are you?
Good. I'm glad it worked finally.
Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How about you?
Good. A little bit sad because it is maybe for the last meeting.
Yeah.
Though I hope we can continue later on, even if I finish my thesis, I will be like reading and analyzing your future plays, hopefully.
I hope so. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy
Yeah.
birthday. Sorry for saying it
Oh,
late. It was 2 days
no, it's
ago.
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Wish you all the best,
Thank you.
all happiness and success.
Thank you.
Have you wished for anything this year?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't. I guess I should wish for something, right?
Yes, you should think of it. Then you tell
Okay.
me.
Thank you. Okay.
Wishing
Thank you
you
for
all the
reminding me.
best and happiness. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
Um, we started last meeting with the Refugee Hotel and we talked about a lot of things. And then I asked you about people whom you are influenced in. And I mostly noticed that you are influenced in a novelist called Isabel Allende. And
Yeah, that's right. I remember you
I
showed me the
have this
book.
book for her,
Yes.
which is I am too lazy. I haven't read it, and I have it since a year ago. I'm a lazy person, I admit. Tell me, Carmen, whether if you are influenced in people who are philosophers, writers, playwrights, whatever, politics, activists.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people have influenced my writing. So, yeah, Isabel Allende, who's, as you know, is Chilean.
Yes.
You know, her writing is described as magic realism,
Mhm.
but in Latin America, I think that's just considered storytelling, right? The
Mhm.
way that she tells a story.
Yes.
For us, it's just regular storytelling because uh, for many, many, many people in Latin America,
Mhm.
um, our cosmology
Yes.
is that the veil between this realm and the other realm is very thin, so
Mhm.
that we are always surrounded by our ancestors and by those who came before us, who are here to lead us,
Yes.
and keep us connected to
Keep us on
our
the track.
yeah,
We need to be on the track every now and then.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So so I mean, in the north, that has been referred to like Isabel Allende's type of writing, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez's type of
Mhm.
writing has been labeled magic realism.
Mhm.
But really, they both have said they're just telling stories the way that we tell stories in Latin America, and they're just, reporting on what they see around them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So definitely, Isabel Allende, Gabriel Garcia Marquez,
Mhm.
those people have been a huge influence on me,
Yes.
because they've embraced unapologetically that way of telling stories, right? I have such a long list of people who have inspired me, and like, artists who have inspired me, and
Mhm.
continue, and I keep finding new ones every day. But
Not
Eduardo
really.
Eduardo Galeano is another one. He
Yes.
was an Uruguayan writer.
Yes.
Um, there's a singer-songwriter from Cuba called
Mhm.
Silvio Rodriguez,
Mhm.
who has also been a huge influence on me.
Mhm.
Like there's like visual artists that have been very influential for me, like Frida Kahlo,
Yeah.
um, who's Mexican, as you know. There's a Ecuadorian Quechua visual artist called Guayasamín, who's also very influential for me.
Now you are
Yeah,
speaking
I
of
could.
those people in terms of writing and in terms of
Yeah.
writing literature in general. Not necessarily you are influenced by them through the personal level. or the politics?
Yeah, all of them, their art, you know, and
Your
also their politics, right? The way they married politics and art.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and then there's many playwrights that I find inspirational, right? Like all the way from,
Mhm.
you know, Euripides, you know, to
Yeah.
Shakespeare, to
Mhm.
Canadian playwrights, you know, like you know, there's Quebecois playwrights who I have huge admiration for, like Michel Marc Bouchard and Michel Tremblay. Um, and then you know, indigenous playwrights in Canada, like Marie Clements,
Yes.
you know, who have all shown me what's possible with their writing.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was great. Carmen, as a writer, how do you see that how much authority a writer should have to write about other cultures? What does a writer need in order to know and to describe other cultures in the proper way?
Yeah. So first of all, I think that you know, I don't believe in censorship in any way.
Mhm.
So I believe that anybody can write whatever they want.
Yes.
That doesn't mean they're not accountable,
Mhm.
right, to the community, especially if they're writing about a culturally specific community.
Yes.
So, you know, I can sit here and write about whoever, right? Like a Chinese community.
Mhm.
Um, but I have to be accountable to that community. If they come to me,
Exactly.
ask me, you know, ask me questions, right? If I put up a play
Mhm.
with a bunch of Chinese characters set in a Chinese community, telling a Chinese story, and a bunch of Chinese people come up to me and go, that was wrong. Like you got it all wrong.
Mhm.
Who did you talk to about this? Who was your cultural consultant? Why did you want to tell this? I have to engage in that conversation. I
Yeah.
can't just run away and be like, I can do what I want, you know. No, yeah, yes, you can do what you want. And if you're going to do that, it comes with a responsibility to be accountable to that community if they have questions.
Mhm.
So there's a few things there, like if you're going to write about a culturally specific community that is not yours,
Yes.
um I firmly believe that you should definitely get cultural consultants involved immediately, right? um and actually listen to them so that you're not just going through the motions, right? And
Mhm.
then are able to go, oh, look, but I got this guy, but you never actually listened to him, right? So you have to get cultural consultants and actually listen to them. And then like for me, currently in the Canadian theater scene,
Mhm.
as you can imagine, this is a very big question that is being constantly asked and constantly being discussed
Yes.
publicly.
Yes.
For me, the next question would be, why? Right? Like if, for example, if a white person wants to
Mhm.
write an Indigenous story in Canada, the first question would be, why? Why do you want to do that? Right? So for so long, Indigenous playwrights in Canada have not had proper resources, proper funding, proper space, right?
Mhm.
To put up their work, you
Yes.
know, and after many years of struggle and struggle and struggle, those spaces and those resources are becoming more available.
Mhm.
So why would somebody who's not Indigenous want to grab that space,
Mhm.
right? I would just ask them, why are you doing that? It's not your, it's not time yet, you know? Um, you know, we're having that issue in the Latinx theater community in Canada, right? And with one person in particular
Yes.
who is white,
Yes.
right? But whose father was Latinx. But this person was not raised by their father, right? They were raised by their white mom,
Right.
and this person looks completely white, right? And this person was raised like with no connection to a Latinx community.
Yes.
So culturally, I would argue they're not Latinx. I would argue that biologically they're half Latinx because their dad was Latinx,
Mm-hmm.
but culturally they're not
He is
really
different.
Latinx, right?
He is.
They're white, right? They grew up white in a white household with no connection to Latinx people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this person, until about 5 years ago, identified as white.
Yes.
But 5 to 7 years ago, they really started to claim the lost Latinx identity that
Uh-huh.
they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a beautiful thing. I think everybody who needs to go on that journey should go on that journey, and they should be supported. But now this person is writing plays with Latinx characters, like Latinx families, and writing plays that are set in Latin America. And
Mm-hmm.
they clearly have no idea what they're doing because culturally they're not Latinx. So, so what they're actually doing is kind of perpetuating negative racist stereotypes of Latinx people.
Yes.
And not only that, they are taking up precious space,
Yes.
resources, funding,
Mm-hmm.
that is not available yet to Latinx people in Canada, right? It's only now starting to open up a bit,
Mm-hmm.
thanks to years of struggle. And this person has gone and taken a lot of that space and a lot of those resources. So again, what I say to that person is anybody can do whatever they want. I don't believe in censorship. So you go, you write plays set in Latin America, you write plays with
About
Latinx
different
characters.
culture.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask you why. I'm going to ask you, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've chosen to write plays about my community and set in my community, you
Yes.
need to be accountable to that community that you are trying to represent on stage. Yeah,
Indeed. Right. Thank
yeah.
you. That was so clear, Carmen. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Going a little bit back for the refugee hotel and the use of irony and humor. You've said that it's also obvious in the choice of the names, like the receptionist who was not really receptive, and even the name of a flaca, Carmen. Do you have something in mind when you chose the name of a flaca, which means, I think, skinny?
Yeah, basically that's I don't know. Okay, so basically in Latin America, and I know this is the case in many places in the world,
Mm-hmm.
um, most people have a nickname,
Yes.
ever since they're children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the nickname usually points to some physical, well, not necessarily physical, but some kind of characteristic that person has, right? So if they're skinny, you call them skinny. If they're fat, you call them fat, right? That's where the nickname comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And their terms of endearment. They're not derogatory terms, right? They're terms of
Mm-hmm.
endearment. So she's always been called Flaca, I think, ever since she was
Yes.
young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this does not have a connection with her being strong, or this can give an idea of, or let's say a contrary to her being
Yeah, no, I think it's just connected to her always having been a
her
thin.
physical appearance, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And we talked about the people who are like outsiders. You said that there are three people who are outsiders: the social worker and the receptionist. Okay,
Yes, and Bill O'Neill.
Colonial, yes, Colonial, who was trying to communicate with those people until they can find jobs, which is a good or positive issue for all of them.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you said something that they are from different origins. I need to know about that.
The three people, yeah. So Bill
Yes,
O'Neill, I would say he's an outsider. He's outside of mainstream Canadian
Canadian.
society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he's working class, right? He
Yes.
comes from the working class, and because he's a leftist and a hippie,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so he's an outsider, right? He stands outside the mainstream. He's not of the dominant culture, right?
Mm-hmm. I see.
Then the receptionist is a gay man,
Mhm,
you know, and that's also an outsider,
mhm.
you know, in main he stands outside of, in other words, he's marginalized, right? He's a marginalized person
Yes.
because he's a gay man, right?
Mhm,
And in 1974, if he's in his 60s, let's say in 1974,
mhm,
he would have, you know, been a young man in the in the 30s, in the 1930s.
mhm.
Anyway, he would have really been marginalized, you know, so he's a marginalized person for being gay. And then the social worker is the daughter of refugees, right, of Hungarian refugees. So she's also an outsider. So the three of them are outsiders and can, at a certain point, like Bill O'Neill is already connected, completely connected to them. But the
Mhm.
receptionist has to go through a journey, right, to connect with them.
Yes.
And I think that we can all see that he's also a marginalized person, you know, and the social worker is just trying to do her job with very little resources and very little preparation.
Mhm.
But yeah, she's obviously connected to them because she's the daughter of refugees herself. Yeah,
And in this sense, they represent the diversity that you are maybe intending to let people see. That those diverse people, those different people, are part of the community,
that's right.
so
Yeah.
that the audience feel like they can relate. The audience can relate to them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. And again, Carmen, in the Refugee Hotel, the use of humor. Yes, I need you
Mhm.
to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I put a lot of humor in it for two different reasons. One, it's actually faithful to Chilean culture, right? Like that is Chilean culture. It's full of humor and dark humor.
Fun is the dancing, singing. Yes.
Yeah, and also just humor, like laughing at the most terrible, dire situation, right? That's a survival mode. How do you get through it? Through humor.
So it's
So I
kind of like a therapy that people are intentionally, or sorry, not intentionally, very in a natural way, they use humor in order to get out of something, out of horror maybe.
Well, in order to deal with horror and to face it, right? So
Yes.
like one of the reasons I used humor in the play
Mm-hmm.
was the cultural reason that it's actually faithful to Chilean culture, that this is how these characters would be speaking.
Okay.
And two, there's a lot of horror in the play, you know, and how do you make an audience
Just like a
stay
kind of
over that?
relief. Yes, kind of relief, kind of hope.
No, how do you make an audience stay? Like, first of all, I'm using humor in the play
Mm-hmm.
as um, a way to cut through the horror, right? So the humor works because there's so much horror in it, so it balances it out, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and also because that is how these characters survive, you know, through their humor. That's how they survive.
Yes, because they are such in a critical. There was a connection issue, Carmen, sorry.
Okay. Oh, that's okay.
And again, and with the uh, with the refugee hotel, most of the characters can find a way to continue and can find a job, and this, as I believe, give kind of hope. Though Fat Jorge, who is not able to manage and to control his agony and dilemma, uh, within a few sentences, can you just sum up the findings of the refugee hotel?
The what things?
The results or the findings or what the characters have, let's say, come up with at the end.
Yeah, I mean, like, Fat Jorge is like, I would say there's the narrator in the play, which is Manuelita, right?
Mhm.
And then there's the main character, I think, is Fat Jorge, and he's like a tragic anti-hero
Yes.
because he doesn't make it,
Mhm.
he drinks himself to death. He doesn't make it. And
Mhm.
it was super important to me to tell that story because um that's a common story. It happens a lot.
Sometimes people don't even try. He didn't even try. He didn't take his
Well, he
chance.
couldn't.
He
Yeah,
refused
he couldn't.
it
He
from
couldn't, right?
very beginning.
Yeah, he couldn't. He
Mhm.
was in too much pain.
Yes.
Yeah, he was in too much pain and he couldn't overcome it, and he's self-medicating with alcohol.
Mhm.
And that just got worse and worse and worse until he drank himself to death, right? So you've got him on the one hand, and then you've got somebody like Flaca on the other hand, who has also been through absolute horrific trauma, right?
Yes.
But who does come out the other side. And I think there's different reasons for why she does and he doesn't. And I think she does, some people, she's not an addict, right? I think, and he's an addict, right? He's an alcoholic. So
This
there's a huge difference
this is
there.
this counts. Yes.
Yeah. And also she knew why she was in a concentration camp, right? She was already in the resistance. She already had a political formation and political analysis and understood when she was part of the resistance that this might happen to her. And then it did happen to her, but she was in jail, like in a concentration camp with her comrades. She had a whole political formation, a political analysis, and even more importantly, a political commitment to a cause bigger than her. So all of that gave her way more tools to be able to somehow continue to live a full life after everything that happened.
Yes.
But Fat Jorge had none of that when he was picked up. He
Mhm.
didn't have political formation or analysis or commitment to a cause. So I
Uh,
think it's those two big things, that he
yes.
was an addict and he also was not in the resistance.
Mhm.
And so he wasn't prepared in any way, um, even intellectually,
Mhm.
for what happened to him.
Sometimes I feel even if it is not Canada, if it is not the place, even if you, let's say, if he was in a different place, or even he was in Chile, and things are changing and things are developing in terms of technical things or machines, he was also like incapable of getting with things. He was
Yeah,
that kind of, sometimes we have people who are too lazy to work, too lazy to work for something, though they need it. Sometimes
yeah,
people call for freedom, they need freedom, but they are reluctant enough to work for it and to gain it.
uh-huh,
Because once they left Chile, um, they sometimes you feel like people like Fat Forget, life has stopped for them. They cannot manage. There's it's his problem. It's not the place. It's not the right here, the right now um, matters. Because one of the incidents, he does not know how to work with the Coke machine, and he
yeah,
accuses the machine of being stupid while
yeah,
he does not know how to work with it. So
yeah, that's right.
people like him were like give you the impression that it's the problem is in their psychology, in their readiness of getting with things. It's not the place or the politics.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good observation about him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's time to go through a journey, a magical, a realism journey with Anywhere But Here.
Mm-hmm.
And what strikes me most is a quote for what between that you use. it is right in the beginning of the play that says happiness is not in another place, but this place. It's not in another hour, but this hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking you about people whom you are influenced in. Then we have this quote in the beginning of Anywhere But Here for this poet who is also concerned with the uh, working class. Why this quote, Carmen? And why specifically Walt Whitman? What was there in your mind when you chose that quote? And even in the play, when does this quote work like an incarnation for something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the play is about exile, right? And I know we've talked about this a lot already, right? But exile, unlike immigration, is like when you're in a state of exile, is all about the return home, the return home, the return home, the
Yes,
return home.
there is that echo inside. Yes.
Yeah. So that quote, so I love Walt Whitman. I
Mhm.
was first introduced to his writing when I was in theater school in voice class. You know, we would do his work in voice class. And it was Leaves of Grass, that book. And I just thought that quote captured what these characters in Anywhere But Here, almost every single one of them, like not just the family, right? But almost every single character is in search of, right? They're
Yeah.
in search of happiness and they want it right here, right now. Like they want it in this place and they want it right now, but it can't be in this place because they're all in a state of exile. They all just wish they were back home. So that's why I chose that quote.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, it's not the place, or no, in this time you mean it's the place that is the most problematic, that does not offer them that happiness, even if they are ready.
Yeah, like they're because they're in a state of exile, you're always just searching for happiness, which to you would be the equivalent of going home. You're just always reaching for home. And you think that that's where you're going to be happy. And you really wish you were happy right in this new place, in this new time. But it's not happening for you because you're in a state of
Always,
exile.
it's
Yeah.
always like something delayed. It's not now.
It's not now because you're always wishing that you were home, right? So as much as you would want to be happy right here, right now, the fact that you're in a state of exile, right? Like the fact that you are not where you want to be, which is on your land, makes you unhappy.
Yes. This is
Yeah,
the first,
sorry,
this is a pun.
I'm just fixing where I'm sitting. Okay, there. Okay.
It's okay. This is number one for them. This is the first problem. Then it comes to the problems of the family issues and the family values that they are losing, because when going into the play, you don't see that they are only restricted by the borders, the political or the geographical borders between countries. There are also family borders within the parents themselves, the father and the mother, who are about to be separated, or they are, uh, as we know that the play starts in the middle, they are separated now
Yeah.
because a very serious issue happened between them, and that issue was like uh, the starting point for having two different characters of two different girls. So speaking of the borders, sorry, I was speaking of the borders. I will not take you now to the play.
Okay.
Again, what do you have in mind when you chose the title? Why it is Anywhere But Here?
Yeah, because all the characters in the play want to be somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the father wants to be in Chile. You know, Lupe doesn't know where she wants to be. And then she finally decides that she wants to be in Chile. But they're not in Chile. They're in this car in the
Yes.
desert, right?
Yes.
Carolita wants to be in Vancouver, but she's not in Vancouver. She's in this car in the desert.
Yes. Laura. Yes.
You know, Laura, you know, doesn't has made peace with being in Vancouver, right? She knows that they cannot go back.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not in Vancouver and she's not in Chile, she's in the desert, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Arcangel, the boy on the train, he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to be on the train. He doesn't want to be in the desert. You know, he wants to be in Honduras, etc. Right? They all want to be somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
except for the spirits, of course, right? Except for Aunt Lily and Juana, right? They all want to be somewhere else. Like even the border guard, you know, the young man with guns,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be like shooting at people. He
Yes.
wants to be somewhere else. So that's why they would all rather be anywhere but here.
Not
But
here.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
So again, we don't have characters that are convinced with what they are doing or where they are. All of them. Now we don't have characters who succeed. All of them, you mean? Except for the characters from the old age. We are speaking about them generally. Then we are going to choose
yeah,
them
yeah. You know,
by
like
name.
even at the top of Act 2, when we
Mhm.
meet all those other characters on the other side of the border, right? When we meet, you
Yes.
know, the dog and, you know, the boy with the balloon in his heart, all those characters, you know, the old man with the egg. Again, except for the spirits, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
they also don't want to be there, right?
Mhm.
They don't want to be like, some of them want to be on the other side of the wall, right? Some
Mhm.
of them they don't want to be standing by a wall trying to get through the wall or
Yes.
selling stuff, right? They would rather be somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we now begin with the characters, starting with Manuel, who is always longing to go back to Chile?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So he's a
Childhood.
guy. Yeah, he's a guy who is really in the middle of a state of exile. Like he just does not want to be
Mhm.
anywhere other than Chile, right?
Mhm.
To the point where he does this crazy thing, right? Where he's very impulsive,
Mhm.
you know, so he impulsively grabs the girls in a moment of passion, right? Of his heart has been broken
Yes.
by his wife, right? Um, and like he finds himself basically kidnapping his two children, right? And throwing them into this car and thinking that he can drive all the way to Chile,
Mhm.
you know, and that's something that many Chilean exiles in Canada would talk about. Not the kidnapping part, but like there was this dream that people would talk about driving back, right?
Nice.
Let's drive all the way back to Chile, right?
Just
Let's
like
drive.
just keep moving. They
Yeah,
cannot they cannot
and I
stand the
mean,
idea of getting in somewhere and uh,
yeah, well, and
standing
also
still
there was something very romantic about this idea of driving through North America and leaving North America
to the
behind,
south.
but seeing it, right? Driving through it
Yes.
and driving south and driving
Mhm.
through all of Central, you know, Mexico and Central America and South and like just taking in that land, which is very different than if you fly in a plane,
As
right?
if the problems are going to be solved in that place while they are
Yeah.
returning, even if they are not reaching. We know that they are not reaching in many of the place. Most there is like a common thing between the characters that they are not reaching um, somewhere, but though they are trying, they
Yes.
are really searching source of comfort in going back to the south, to the roots.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this makes Manuel one of the characters that somehow I feel that he is different, if you agree with me, different from the characters we dealt with them in a land called, I don't remember, in the refugee hotel, the successful ones. I mean, just like one of the chickens or the others, or Laka herself, or even in Chil con Carne, there are people who are ready to come up with new things and to try to find that reconciliation and try to stand again. Manuel, what moves him and what really encourages him, as you have said, is it only the romantic thing that his heart was broken and he was betrayed by the wife? Apart from his attitude from women in general, we'll be speaking about this in our next part. Do you feel that he has that commitment to revolution, or he is totally apart from this?
He has a commitment to the revolution,
Yes.
but not the way his wife does.
Yes.
Yeah, not the way Lauda does.
He has a commitment, you mean?
He does have a commitment, but
Yes.
not in the same way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he really believes, that somehow, some way, he can still kind of be in Chile and be part of the resistance, even though they're blacklisted, even though they're not allowed in, that he will figure it out. So, but he's being irrational, right? He's being completely irrational.
Yes.
And we know why, right? He's had his heart broken. He is in exile. He's had all his dignity taken away from him as an
Yes.
exile. I'll click on the next Zoom meeting like 3
Okay.
minutes.
I will
after
also stop the meeting, and I might be needing like 5 or 10 minutes so that we can continue to move to the second part if you are ready.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Thank you so much, Carmen.
okay, bye.
Bye-bye.